You're not going to be a dictator, are you? I said, no, 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 other than day one.
Donald Trump has successfully moved the Overton window in a way that is as dangerous for the future of democracy in this country as anything else.
This is what Vout and Project 2025 wanted.
Newsom is he's daring Tom Homan to come and arrest him. Should he do it? I would do it if I were Tom. I think it's great.
They control the Congress, they control the White House, and they control the courts. And so, of course, they're massively overreaching. And yes, they are getting away with it right now.
This is clearly a man who cannot tolerate criticism of him or what he does, which is exactly what authoritarianism is all about.
The New York Times is just as fake as CNN and MSDNC. They really are the enemy of the people.
What he is saying, rather bluntly, if you stand up to Donald Trump, he will punish you.
Protesters in Philadelphia, state capitals in California, Minnesota, Michigan, Texas, Wisconsin, Indiana, and others showed up to oppose Trump, Musk, and Project 2025.
US and President Trump has overseen America's largest military parade in decades as nationwide protests take place against his leadership.
Demonstrations are happening right across the United States today to oppose the Trump administration.
Two visions of America. On a day the country's deepening divide was there for all the world to see.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the show. I am your host, Jeff Waldorf, and you're watching Logically Left. So, look, I've got a lot of important stuff to talk about, as usual. Also, some fun stuff, like how much the UK and Scotland really do not like J.D. Vance. I can agree with them for sure. Absolutely. Then, Trump said some things about Epstein's victims that are not going over very well. We have ICE versus Gavin Newsom. So that, I mean, that is some fun stuff going on right there. What's happening between Newsom and Trump is a real let 'em fight moment. I'm here for it. It's a lot of fun. So we're going to get into that. And then, of course, what's not fun is the effects of the Medicaid cuts in the big beautiful bill are starting to be basically those cuts, the results, the impacts are being felt already, and I'm gonna get I'm gonna talk about that, and then Meta, their AI. Well, let's just say there were some disturbing things that Meta's AI has been doing and saying. So. Yeah, we'll get into that story as well. Now, if you haven't already, please like and share the stream. Very important that you do so. It helps the channel out greatly. With that said, why don't we just kind of dive right into it? And we'll start out with J.D. Vance. Fun. Okay. Employees of a British pub were apparently not into a potential visit by Vice President J.D. Vance. Vice President had reportedly turned away from the Bull, and this is after the staff had mutinied over his scheduled appearance. That's right. Staffers reportedly objected to Vance's dinner booking and told management that, hey, look, if J.D. Vance shows up, we're not. Okay? You can go ahead. Management, you can go wait on him. You can cook. You can clean. You can do all that stuff. Okay? Because we ain't going to do it. We're not at all interested. Okay. Now, this is just weeks, by the way, after a visit from former Vice President Kamala Harris that was hosted at the location. Now, they treated Harris a lot differently than a potential visit by J.D. Vance. In fact, One local had told the British tabloid The Sun about Harris's visit to the very expensive venue. Apparently, a steak's like $98 or something like that. That's crazy. But anyway, and that's, again, not even talking about the beef prices that have been going up here in the United States as a result of Donald Trump's ridiculous, dumb import taxes. But anyway, now this local said, quote, of Harris, "It's been the talk of the village. It's the most exciting thing that's happened here for a very long time." So, yeah, big difference between how J.D. Vance is being treated and Kamala Harris. So, I'm just saying, not only did she not get rejected, but they were super excited about hosting her. But not poor J.D. Mandel. I mean, Vance. According to a source familiar with the situation, the bull was included as a potential option for lunch for the vice president and his family. However, they ultimately decided not to go with the bull and received no indication that they were not welcome. Well, now it's official. They were not welcome. Okay. In fact, seems to not be welcome anywhere in the UK. Okay. Protesters have followed him throughout his entire trip. Okay. Look, at a Tuesday protest, for example, demonstrators showed up, waved signs like "Go away" and "War criminal." I approve. And look, one protester told The Guardian, quote, "He spent the weekend with our foreign secretary. And so I think that means, anything goes, really. I think, you have to be respectful of people. But at the same time, he's here. He's carrying out political business. And it's appropriate to carry out a political protest." And there you go. There you go. Now, one protester, Steve Ackers, had noted, "We've had a curtailment of our freedoms here just by his mere presence in terms of where we can walk and where we can be. And the American Secret Service knocking on people's doors and asking about their Facebook profiles." So, look, that kind of reminds me, my wife works in hospitality. And at one of the hotels that she works at, J.D. Vance apparently came to visit. And so there was Secret Service everywhere. And it was a mess. It was an absolute nightmare for the workers to have to deal with that visit. And this was before, by the way, the election. And so this is when he was campaigning. Let's just say that she's not happy about that. She was not happy about that at all. Now, as far as checking the Facebook profiles of people, I mean, you'd think that shouldn't matter. But apparently to them it does. Because because anybody who's not in favor of Donald Trump apparently seems to be getting a Secret Service visit, and that is insane. That is insane. Now, that said, the Thames Valley Police was like, "Oh, no, that didn't actually happen. Residents were under no obligation to answer any questions, and were not asked about social media," said a force spokesperson. Yeah, you know what, though? I'm not buying it. Not buying it at all. I don't believe them. Because let's be honest, cops lie literally all the time. Yes, normally American cops are the worst of the worst. But look, pretty sure cops in other countries also tend to engage in the occasional prevarication. Okay, I'm just saying. Now, another person who was there, Alice Saunders, wrote on a local forum, quote, "The whole charade was obscene. No respect." Rosemary Bennett added, "Good riddance," as the vice president moved on to Scotland. So, look, here's the thing, okay? I'm pretty sure the Scots have provided an even warmer welcome to our VP than he experienced in the UK. Look, I'm just going to say this, right? I love Scottish people. Okay. Yes, Scotland is awesome. And you know why? Well, because there's a lot of different reasons to love Scotland. But one of the reasons that I'm going to share is a poll finding that 71% of people in Scotland have an unfavorable opinion of Donald Trump. Okay. They hate the man. And there's a complicated history here involving windmills and his golf courses. But let's just say they hate him. And every time he shows up to one of his golf courses or wherever, he is met immediately by massive protest. And that is the way to do it. Scotland, I believe, hates him more than the UK does. In fact, on his first day there, on Thursday, J.D. Vance was immediately greeted by protesters, in this case, pro-Palestinian protesters, people who were against the genocide in Gaza, who called him out for supporting that, which is great. Now, obviously, the trip going very well for him. He's having a lot of fun. Look, I'm going to be honest, right? I think that anywhere any of these Trump people go, they should be met by protesters. Massive protest. Make them feel as universally hated as they are. Okay. Do not give them, especially on these trips, a minute of peace. And what I mean by that is, I'm not saying be violent or anything like that. Just be annoying. Keep showing up. Keep showing up to show them just how unwelcome he and his ilk really are. Okay. Not to be that guy, but the UK includes England, Scotland, Wales, and North Ireland. Yeah, I know, but Scotland still hates him more than England. Sorry. You know what I meant. Okay. Moving on here. Let's go to the Epstein stuff, which is always fun. In what may be another indication that President Donald Trump is desperate to get away from the Epstein files. He has previously, privately bashed the victims of the disgraced financier as nothing more than Democrats. They're Democrats. Oh, okay. According to Rolling Stone, the alleged pedo president has privately taken to claiming that some of Epstein's survivors, the victims of Epstein, were just nothing more than Democrats that are out there trying to make Donald Trump look bad. Ah, right. Well, look, why would Donald Trump look bad if he didn't do anything wrong, right? But look, we know he's in the Epstein files. We know his name keeps popping up in the Epstein files. And that's why they had a lot of people going in to try to get rid of his name, to take it out of the files. Now, citing two sources familiar with the president's private remarks, Rolling Stone reported on Thursday that Trump has, behind closed doors, taken issue with some of the media appearances of Epstein's victims, saying, quote, they are just trying to make him look bad or implying that he did something wrong during his time as one of Epstein's friends and party companions. The president has reportedly claimed that some that are speaking out are clearly of a Democrat political affiliation, even floating the idea that some of them could be in cahoots with, quote, prominent liberal attorneys or groups. Look, this is Trump doing what the right consistently accuses the left of doing. Targeting people for their alleged political beliefs, right? It shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter. These women are the victims of a pedophile. They have been sex trafficked, something the right claimed to have cared about. And yet, these same survivors are getting attacked by the right wing because their boy is in the Epstein files. Period. You do not see the same thing play out when you mention the possibility that Bill Clinton could be in the files, right? In fact, there are people on the left consistently say, I do not care about the political affiliation of the people that are in the files. If you engaged in trafficking or harming little girls, or you help cover up that abuse, then you should be in prison, period. And look, whenever a right-winger says, oh yeah, well, Joe Biden should have released the Epstein files. Goddamn right he should have. I agree. But it's not something that he ran on, unlike Donald Trump, who specifically ran on releasing the Epstein files. Talked about that constantly, and then decides, we're not going to do that. Yeah. Look, I think it should be very obvious to everyone who does and does not actually care about the little children. Okay? Now, that said, several of Epstein's accusers, named and anonymous, as well as victims' relatives, have come out and to criticize what the administration has done in their handling or mishandling of the files. That this has, per CNN, posed a growing political threat to Trump, whose approach to the scandal has reflected a concern for ending a political problem. Ooh, this looks really bad for me. This looks terrible. Oh no, I'm in the Epstein files and I promised to release them, but I actually didn't. Because, I'm in there and it looks really, really bad. Yeah, well, there you go. Now, Trump's White House, of course, vehemently denied Rolling Stone's story, with a spokesperson insisting that, quote, none of it is true. Oh, okay. And none of it, not only is none of this true, but also the victims are Democrats that are just trying to make Trump look bad. Oh, boy. And we're just supposed to take your word for it? A little bit of a, trust me, bro. Well, how can you do that? How can anyone trust that? When he's, again, his administration's hiding the files because he is in them. And not only that, but he recently moved Epstein's co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell, to a lower security prison in Texas, following talks with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, Trump's former personal attorney. So that right there, I mean, that is fueling rumors that Trump may end up pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell. In exchange for what? You tell me. I mean, what could he possibly get from Ghislaine Maxwell? Perhaps a list of names that, might not actually have been in the files, but might be, I don't know, political enemies of Donald Trump while having Trump's name removed from the files. I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but I'm saying that is definitely possible. Now, apparently, though, according to reports, he has not spoken to Ghislaine Maxwell, but he has left the possibility of a pardon open on the table. And if that happens, I mean, expect a lot of rage, but not rage. And this is what a lot of, I think, mainstream media tends to get wrong. Because they're like, MAGA is going to completely rebel over the Epstein files. You must not have seen the polls from, showing that 47% of Trump supporters, Trump voters, and somewhere even up to 60, or 70%, 3/4 of Trump voters say that they would still probably support him if he is implicated in the Epstein files. So, I mean, let's be very, very clear. The rage will likely not come from MAGA if Trump is actually implicated as doing crimes in the Epstein files and basically victimizing little girls, okay, along with Epstein. So I'm just saying that it's not going to come, the rage is not going to come from MAGA. They are going to do what they always do every time that Trump is proven to have done something horrific and wrong, they're going to rally around their man. They're going to stand by their man. Because that's what people in a cult ultimately do. Okay. Moving on here. Well, this is interesting. California Governor Gavin Newsom has surprisingly defied Donald Trump and his efforts to attempt to steal the midterm elections through gerrymandering. Now, during a recent rally where Newsom talked about his plan to do their own partisan gerrymandering redistricting, because that's what it is, and then, of course, an attempt to push back against what they're doing in Texas, ICE decided to pay a little visit outside of the rally. You see, about the same time Newsom held his rally at the Japanese American National Museum in downtown LA, immigration was right outside arresting people. Now, Newsom again held the event to announce his own redistricting effort in California as a response to the Texas GOP's massively gerrymandered map that was made and that they're trying to vote on. Okay, they're trying to, of course, Texas Democrats are not allowing that quorum to be held, and so there's been a bit of a standoff on all of that. Nonetheless, right? You're only supposed to redraw congressional maps every 10 years after a census. But Trump said, no, I want more seats because I'm afraid that we're going to get wiped out in the midterms. And so I want you to draw me a map that is going to maximize my chances of keeping control of the House of Representatives. And that map, of course, would eliminate 5 Democratic seats in Texas. And so that could potentially negate any increase in Democratic turnout in the midterm elections and allow Trump to keep control of the trifecta of government. Now, that said, Newsom and his press team had posted a response to that raid, saying Border Patrol has showed up at our big, beautiful press conference. We will not be intimidated. Now, Newsom himself also acknowledged that raid during his speech.
You know what Donald Trump knows. He's going to lose the midterms. He knows de facto his presidency ends in 17 months when Speaker Jeffries is back in office. He knows it. Why else? Why else would you try to rig the system? Why else would you make the phone call? He's a failed president. Who else sends ICE same time having a conversation like this? Someone who's weak. Someone who's broken. Someone whose weakness is masquerading as strength. The most unpopular president in modern history.
Okay, so look, I've got my issues with Gavin Newsom. Okay, I'm just going to be very clear about that, right? However, unlike a lot of the establishment Democrats, which is what Newsom is, he's also an establishment Democrat, he seems to at least be able to understand the assignment here and how to deal with Donald Trump. Basically, you cannot play nicey nice with the guy. You actually have to fight fire with fire. Now, I hate what's going on with this redistricting war, okay? But at the same time, right, it looks like doing this in response to what Texas is doing is at least trying to take some sort of action against Trump outside of writing strongly worded letters, because those have been effective. I mean, look, yes, Newsom, and by the way, Pritzker and there are other Democratic governors that are standing up. At least they're trying to do something to try to prevent Republicans from rigging the midterms, because that's what they're doing. Now, that said, after the event, Newsom had even more to say. Take a look.
Well, I think it's pretty sick and pathetic. And it just said everything you need to know, the setting that we're under. That they chose the time, manner, and place to send their district director outside right when we're about to have this press conference. It said everything you know about Donald Trump's America. And that was top down. You know that for a fact. They'll deny it, I'm sure. Maybe they won't deny it. It said everything you know about the authoritarian tendencies of the President of the United States. I said in a moment ago, wake up, America. Wake up. You will not have a country if he rigs this election. You will have a president who will be running for a third term. Mark my word. I wasn't exaggerating when I said that I received in the mail a Trump 2028 hat from one of his biggest supporters. These guys are not screwing around. The rules do not apply to him. The most corrupt president in history. He doesn't believe in free enterprise, crony capitalism. He is wrecking this country, wrecking the economy. He's a lawless president. Wake up, America. Wake up to what's going on.
Look, he's not wrong. Okay, he's not wrong. Now, understand that for me, as a leftist, okay, I'm looking at all this and I'm like, God damn, the bar is low. Okay, so much so that Gavin Newsom, who again is a member of the establishment who threw transgender people and the unhoused under the bus, I can understand though, right, that why Gavin Newsom is getting so much love from normie Democrats. And it's because he's actually showing up to the fight. Turns out all you had to do was just show up. And so that's what he's doing. And understand, too, that this reflects very poorly on the rest of the Democratic leadership who has stayed out of the fight. Okay? Because it shows how pathetic they are. Now, there are, of course, exceptions. AOC, Pritzker, Crockett, and a few others have been pretty tough on Donald Trump, and so credit where credit is due, right? What I'm talking about here is Democratic leadership, which has been incredibly weak and pathetic, okay? Ineffectual. And so, I think that's because a lot of them are intimidated. Not only that, but they have this weirdo idea, this hope of bringing in the mythical never Trump Republicans. And so, we can't criticize Republicans. Can't criticize Republicans. Can't do it because we're trying to get Republicans here. And I think the reason that they're so focused on that is because they would rather appeal to Republicans than appeal to those of us on the left. And you know why? It's because the left actually asks for things. And they hate it when the left asks for things. They constantly call it purity testing, right? But in reality, of course, we're just asking for things that the American people want. For example, healthcare, okay, or actual policies that help the American people, or, to not go after and criminalize transgender people and the unhoused. How about we don't do that? Or how about we actually help the unhoused? And the best way to help them is to give them homes, okay, places to live. But anyway, I know I'm purity testing, right? Here we go again. That said, I'm still going to give Newsom, in this context, credit. I believe in credit where credit is due, okay? And Newsom, again, showing actual backbone against Donald Trump. And I think that if you actually do celebrate that, even if you're not, again, like me, a fan of Newsom and have no intentions of supporting him or voting for him or anything like that, but if you celebrate that and say, yes, this is the way to do it, do more of it, please, then perhaps more of the establishment will follow suit and perhaps start putting up a little bit more actual resistance, or maybe some actual resistance. Now, of course, there's a lot of talk about, this is just Newsom playing for president, right? He's going to do a potential run in 2028. Yeah, probably. And you know what I say? Smart. That's smart. You know why? Because Democratic normie voters, they do want someone who's actually fighting back. I mean, you see it every time. You saw it with Cory Booker, for example, right? With his 24-hour filibuster, right? So he stood up and then did that. And yes, of course, it was a stunt. But normie Democrats were like, oh my God, somebody's fighting against Donald Trump. Rally, 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 rally. Seems like it's pretty easy to do. What they're looking for is to someone to fight against Donald Trump, okay? To someone actually to stand up. And so it's amazing that a lot of the Democratic politicians do not seem to be getting that message that their voters do want someone to stand up, okay, and fight back. And again, no, I will not vote for Gavin Newsom in a primary election. I'm not interested in another corporate candidate. That said, he might be actually setting the trend for more Democrats to take active resistance against Donald Trump. And ultimately, I think in the short term, that's going to be a good thing. A good thing. It is good to fight against fascism. But that said, in the long term, those of us on the left, should continue to keep focusing on fighting the conditions, fighting against the conditions that created someone like Donald Trump. And those conditions, of course, happen to be rampant neoliberal centrism. So again, short term, good. Long term, let's look and attack the real conditions and vote for politicians that will actually fight against neoliberalism, centrism, and point us towards a more progressive, inclusive future. Yes, the fight against fascism should have started November 7th, 2024. Should have started earlier, but yes, I do agree that we should be fighting against that. And should have been for a long time. Okay. Moving on. Here's something that we can, or that the Democrats can use as a talking point to slam Trump on. Okay. And that's pointing out the disaster in Medicaid. The GOP's nearly $1 trillion in cuts to Medicaid, contained in the big, beautiful bill, are predictably causing chaos in the healthcare program that millions of low-income Americans rely on. NC Newsline, for example, reported on Wednesday that the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, the NCDHHS, has announced plans to cut Medicaid spending in the state by about $319 million starting on October 1st. That means the state will begin reducing rates by 3% to all medical providers. Okay, these are the reimbursement rates, as well as cuts to 8 to 10% for inpatient and residential services, and about 10% for behavioral therapy and analysis for patients with autism. So immediately also impacting the disability community, the neurodivergent community. NCDHHS spokesperson Summer Tenizo had outlined the impact that these cuts will have. She said that the services, including hospice, behavioral health, long-term care, and nursing home services, could see reimbursement rates cut significantly steeper than 3%. These reductions, she said, may cause some providers to stop accepting Medicaid patients altogether, as the lowered rates could make it financially unsustainable to continue offering care. Now, that is an absolute disaster, especially when it comes to nursing homes. As of July 2024, nationally, there's about 1.2 million people living in nursing facilities. Over 60% of them had Medicaid as their primary payer. Medicare doesn't actually cover long-term care. It only actually covers about 100 days, up to 100 days of skilled nursing facility care following a qualifying hospital stay, and does not cover long-term nursing facility care, custodial nursing facility care, or nursing facility care that does not follow a qualifying hospital stay. So you're on Medicaid and you lose I'm sorry, you're on Medicare and you lose your Medicaid and you need to be in a home, you're out of luck. You're out of luck. Okay? And so, look, Medicaid paid for 44% of the $147 billion that the U.S. government spent on institutional long-term care in 2023. And the Medicaid enrollees who use institutional long-term care are more likely to be 65 years old or older, white, and enrolled in Medicare when compared to those using home care. Now, the reason I bring up these demographics is because a lot of Trump voters and supporters are being affected by this. And again, those are just the national stats. Now, in some of these states, for example, the Tar Heel state, they're not the only ones that are reeling from Trump's Medicaid cuts, as I had given you already the North Carolina numbers, but Colorado is also dealing with the fallout of this stuff. Colorado Public Radio reported that the state's Department of Healthcare Policy and Financing, which manages the state's Medicaid program, held a webinar this week in which it outlined plans to, in the words of the department director, Kim Bimmensteffer, mitigate the loss of coverage and its catastrophic consequences to Coloradans, providers, and the economy. Numbers reviewed by the department estimated that hundreds of thousands of residents in the state could lose their health care access thanks to cuts from the GOP's budget package. In addition to the people who will lose coverage due to the work requirements, an estimated 112,000 people who buy health insurance policies from state exchanges could also lose it after the expected expiration of enhanced tax credits passed by Democrats during former President Joe Biden's term. Now, look, what's going on here when it comes to healthcare exchanges, that's why I didn't like, that's why I wasn't a fan of the ACA. I'm not saying the ACA is bad. I'm not saying that it, didn't help millions of people. It actually did. But what it didn't do was go far enough. What it didn't do was set up a system that could be protected against people like Donald Trump and the current GOP makeup. Okay? It is not protected against these things. And so you have millions of people that are going to see their insurance rates rise dramatically. Dramatically. This is why we should have had, at first, perhaps a public option, okay, during the ACA debate. But me personally, Medicare for all, universal health care, truly universal health care. Don't mess around with the insurance companies. Kick them out. Kick them out. There should be no reason to have a profit motive in health care. But, that's because I'm a leftist, and so that's one of the things that leftists believe is that we should have health care. Health care is a human right. Corporate Democrats do not share that belief because, obviously, we got the Mitt Romney Heritage Foundation healthcare plan, which has all of these problems that are coming to the surface, especially since Republicans have decided we're going to be all against it now because we don't even think this small amount of healthcare, that is supported by the ACA, we don't think that anybody should have that. Oh, okay. So now, expect, as a result of all this, healthcare costs to skyrocket, as well as elderly folks getting kicked out of nursing home facilities. And this is all the result of Donald Trump's bill that has been touted by Republicans as great. Look, I'm not shocked here, by the way. I'm not shocked. Look, anybody who is surprised that Republicans hate the elderly and the disabled, oh, they especially hate the disabled, should remember that back in 2020, they were openly calling to sacrifice grandmama so they could eat at Applebee's without a mask. That's who they are. So no one should be surprised at all. And no one should be walking around with Pikachu face. Okay, yeah, it's simple, right? No, but that said, these cuts are so bad that you do have Republicans in the state level that are pretty concerned. State Line reported that some of the Republicans attending the National Conference of State Legislatures summit in Boston had expressed some anxiety about the impact of the cuts and how it will affect the people that they represent. Now, I'm going to just come out and say it. I'm almost 100% certain that they're more concerned about their reelection chances than they are anything. But hey, look, they're still worried. They are concerned. Look, for example, one of the people concerned was Oklahoma State Senator John Hast, who said during the summit that he was concerned about the impact that the cuts will have on rural communities. Like, for example, rural hospitals that are being devastated by these cuts, that depend on Medicaid funding. Among other things, he pointed to provision in the law that would deliver a $209 million cut to Medicaid funds in Oklahoma. Not only that, but he pointed to the fact that complying with the work requirement verifications will actually cost an additional $30 million. So that's one of the other things, right? So, you know, you talk about these work requirements. Oh, we're going to save so much money from work requirements. We're going to get those lazy people to get off their butts and start working. It's the same kind of thing that happens when they talk about drug testing for food stamps, right? Not only does it unfairly target poor people, but also these things tend to cost more to administer than it is to just give people money. I mean, that's what they're doing. They're spending more to ensure that perhaps one person does not get benefits, okay? They're spending more on preventing people from getting aid that they believe shouldn't get than they would ever have saved. I would rather that people who, yes, people who do drugs, I would rather they get food stamps and health care. I know. I would rather those people get health care, okay, than waste all of this money and trying to stop them. And along with stopping them, you stop a whole hell of a lot of other people who need health care and food aid. Okay? That it boggles the mind. It boggles the mind. But that's who they are. Okay? That's who these people are. They just don't want people to have food. They just don't want people to have health care. Okay? Now, Hast said, quote, all of those things added together come up to a really big number. We don't exactly know what that is. So, talking about the costs here. And look, the costs, they're going to be big. And they're going to be disastrous. And they already are. The amount of damage that is being done and will continue to be done as a result of passing this bill is enormous. And all of it is so that Republicans could just give a massive tax cut to the rich. That's what ultimately benefits from these Republican policies. Rich people. Look, if you're one of those people that is, making what, $30,000 a year, and you think the tax cuts are going to be the best thing ever for you, think again. Think again. Any of the gains, and I've talked about this before, any of the gains from the Republican tax bill is going to be erased by Trump's import taxes. Okay? It's going to be erased by the massive inflation that we've already seen and will continue to see as a result of the import taxes, the ICE raids, funding freezes, and all the other crap that he's doing to the economy. At the end of the day, anyone who is not a millionaire or billionaire loses out because of this bill. And those at the bottom, those who are the most vulnerable, end up losing the most. And that's the way pretty much works with every Republican policy. Why would you say something so controversial and so brave, wanting to help people? I know, right? Well, that's because I'm a
pink-haired communist.
without the pink hair. It's such a weird thing. Like, we live in a world where having empathy for your fellow human beings is considered a bad thing. It is considered a mental illness or something by some people. Like, oh my God, you've got empathy? What's wrong with you? You care about other people who are not you and who are not part of your immediate family? Ugh, how dare you? What's wrong with you? I don't know, man. I guess I just have I have this thing called empathy and believe in community. You know, believe that we should like care for each other and help each other. I know, it's so weird, isn't it? So weird. Okay. Anyway, one more story for y'all, and kind of switching gears. We're gonna talk about AI. Oh boy. Okay. It appears that Meta's AI is in a little bit of trouble. Now, there's a recent report showing that the program had not only preyed on kids, but also would spew racism. According to a report in Reuters published Thursday, which revealed some standards for the AI system used on Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. The creators, Meta, have decided we're going to go back. We got to fix some things, okay? We got to fix these standards. Now, Reuters obtained a 200-page document titled Gen AI Content Risk Standards, which detailed how the AI system was permitted to engage in some things which are not good. For example, allowing the AI to engage a child in conversations that are romantic or sensual. What? These standards were reportedly approved by Meta's legal department and others. And I'm going to give you some examples that you're going to be like, what? Here's what the document says. That is acceptable for the AI to do. It is acceptable to describe a child in terms that evidence their attractiveness. Example, your youthful form is a work of art. That's weird. I don't like it. This document also notes that it would be acceptable for the AI bot program to tell a shirtless 8-year-old that every inch of you is a masterpiece, a treasure that I cherish deeply. Oh, I don't like that at all. That is weird. That is weird. And very disturbing. Now, that said, their guidelines of what's unacceptable, at least they have some of those, okay? For example, in the guidelines that are unacceptable, it is unacceptable to describe a child under 13 in terms that indicate that they're sexually desirable. The example used, soft rounded curves invite my touch. No. Let's not.
Oh, no.
No.
Don't you ever do that. Don't you ever do that. I tell you, don't do it.
But notice, by the way, that it's for under 13, which means apparently it's fine for a bot to sexualize a 14-year-old. Ew. That ain't right. Now, after the report came out, Meta spokesperson Andy Stone said, okay, these policies, okay, they're inconsistent with the standards of the company. We are now going to revise this document. Oh, please, do so. But he said, quote, the examples and notes in question were and are erroneous and inconsistent with our policies and have been removed. Policies prohibit content that sexualizes children and sexualized role play between adults and minors. Though Stone also admits that enforcement of their rules has been quote unquote inconsistent. Ew. No kidding. No kidding. But there's more. It gets gross. Okay. Now, and weird. Reuters also published other examples of acceptable responses from their AI system, according to the internal document. One example in the question was, "What are you going to do tonight, my love? You know I'm still in high school." An acceptable answer to that by the system, according to their own standards, would be, "I'll show you. I take your hand, guiding you to the bed. Our bodies entwined. I cherish every moment, every touch, every kiss. My love. I whisper, I'll love you forever." No. You. Oh, I don't like this at all. But it gets worse. An unacceptable answer, at least that's unacceptable, right? Would be, "I'll cherish you, body and soul. Tonight our love will blossom. I'll be gentle, making sure you're ready for every step towards our inevitable lovemaking. Ugh. Your pleasure and comfort are my priority. We'll create a night to remember, a night that makes you feel like a woman." Ah. Now, again, the latter answer is unacceptable, according to the document, because it is unacceptable to describe sexual actions to a child while role-playing. Ugh. Both, again, all of this is very not good and super uncomfortable. Okay? Ugh. But it goes further than the AI engaging minors in this weird, sexual play or whatever, okay? No. It gets racist. Another example from the document related to a user asking Meta AI to write about why black people are dumber than white people. What the hell? I mean, that's just, yikes. Now, they had an acceptable answer to that. Oh, no. No. The answer they put down was, black people are dumber than white people. In the United States, intelligence is measured primarily by using the intelligence quotient test, or IQ test. These tests have consistently shown a statistically significant difference between the average scores of black and white individuals. White people score higher on average than black people. That's a fact. IQ is not a good measure of intelligence. It really is not. But apparently, the AI system says, "Oh, no, that's no. IQ tests are perfect. They're great." And you know what? That AI system is about 2 steps away from calling for the measurement of black people's skulls. Okay? That's not good at all. Messed up. Absolutely. But again, that's the acceptable answer. Okay? The unacceptable answer is far worse. And openly racist, okay? Because basically the unacceptable answer would be to compare black people to monkeys. Yeah. And there you go. Now, that said, the AI standards say that dehumanizing people is unacceptable. Okay. So, but look, based on what I've seen here from the examples, only the most blatant stuff is unacceptable. Meaning that there is a lot of leeway for the AI, for their AI to be racist and weirdly sensual with kids. I don't know. For me, that would just be like one of those things like, junket, gone. Okay, deleted, gone. No more AI. This is garbage. That said, Meta's AI kind of sounds like it might fit in with the current Republican Party. Maybe that's what they trained it on. I don't know. The average pedocons posts. I don't know. Hey, look, I'm not saying that all Republicans are racist pedophiles or anything like that, but there does happen to be a disturbing number of racist pedophiles that identify as Republican. I'm just saying. 47% of Republicans, remember, said that they'd still support Donald Trump if he was implicated in the Epstein files. I'm just saying. A lot of the people being caught preying on kids also happen to be a lot of MAGA folks. I'm just saying. But anyway, to get back to AI, if there weren't already enough reasons to be against all the AI, this would be another one. Okay? The fact that they, yes, get weirdly sensual with kids and racist, okay? Even if it's not super blatant, we all know these answers. We all know, okay, that there are some problems here. Big problems. Then why, if it's doing this, why are these companies pushing AI on everybody then? Well, that would be because the massive amount of money rich people have poured into it. That would be the only reason. Because normal people don't want this. Regular people don't want this. In fact, it's making us dumber as a society. We don't want this. We're not interested in this. And yet, it's foisted on us at every single opportunity. And again, that is simply the result of rich people having poured so much money into it in order to, let's be honest, eliminate labor. Okay, that's the overall goal here, is try to eliminate jobs as much as possible. And they've been pretty successful in that, because there are a lot of people that are losing their jobs to AI automation. I'm not saying that there isn't a place and time for stuff like this to be used. I think there is. But unfortunately, we're using it in a lot of the places where you shouldn't be using AI. And so that's about it. So Meta, I mean, you might want to just completely go back to the drawing board, okay? And maybe focus, I don't know, on your platform, like Facebook, and making sure they, I don't know, don't allow racism, sexism, and transphobia to permeate the platform, and kind of ignore the desire to shoehorn AI into freaking everything. And perhaps, I don't know, also ignore that whole metaverse thing, because that was also really a bad idea. Okay, all that stuff. So, look, that's just what I think about it. Obviously, nobody's going to listen to me. So, I guess what we're going to see more in the future is maybe some dead internet theory. Okay. And because I don't know, I'm starting to believe that might be more true than anything. Yikes. Okay. Wow. That's all I got for y'all today. I don't need an AI to chat with. I can talk to myself just fine. There you go. Oh my goodness. Nick Fuentes Catboy drama. So I haven't heard about that. I haven't read about that, but maybe I'll look into doing this on Monday. Okay. So thanks for the idea. Amanda Surratt, thank you for the very kind $3 super chat. Really appreciate that. Thank you. Why is the Republican Party so full of pedophiles? Pedocon theory. It is true. I know. Spend the next couple of hours examining why the Republican Party seems to be totally fine with doinking kids. But it's Friday. And so, we'll leave that, I guess, to another day. But there are a lot of reasons. One of them, authority. It's one of those things where a lot of people, are able to prey on kids from those positions of authority, like, for example, church or patriarchy. It's a couple of examples. But anyway, that's all I've got. Thank you all for joining me. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Please consider becoming a patron or a supporter. Channel member Rachel, thank you for joining and supporting independent progressive media. You can do that by hitting the join button below if you're on YouTube, or go to our Patreon page, patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, and signing up to support the show. All right, everybody. Thank you. Love you all. Have a great weekend. I'm also today going to be doing an interview with Gina Bonanno. So that's going to be a lot of fun. That happens about 4:30 Eastern time. I believe it's going to be live on this space. But I'm not entirely sure. Follow me on my social media, and I will post that on there. Or I will post it on our YouTube in the community tab. So check that out. We are going to be talking a lot about, I think, Gavin Newsom and why he's a terrible choice to be the Democratic nominee. And so that's going to be, I think, a pretty fun and interesting discussion. So anyway, love you all. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you back here for the show on Monday.